Manchester United's transfer history is hiding a dark secret that the club never wants you to discover. The real truth about their worst ever signings is far more shocking than you've been told. What the number one flop did to sabotage the team will leave you speechless. You must stick around until the end to uncover the full, devastating truth. The story of Manchester United in the post-Ferguson era is not only about faded glory or the relentless chase to recapture dominance, it is also a graveyard of disastrous signings, each one carrying the weight of failed promises and broken dreams. Few clubs on earth command the aura of United, but with that prestige comes a curse. Every failure shines under a blinding spotlight. Some players collapsed under it, others stumbled into it, and some never even realized the shadow had swallowed them whole. The defenders, the midfielders, the forwards, and even the man guarding the posts all became unwilling characters in the theater of embarrassment. In the backline, one name lingers as a symbol of calamity: Phil Jones, a player once tipped by Sir Alex Ferguson himself to become one of the greatest ever to wear the red shirt. It sounded like prophecy, yet it read more like a cruel joke etched into football history. Phil Jones brought effort, yes, but effort without precision often turns into chaos. His lunging tackles morphed into slapstick comedy. His clearances rebounded into danger, and his facial contortions while throwing himself across the turf made him look more like a man dodging bullets than a defender neutralizing threats. The 2018 FA Cup final penalty giveaway became the defining scar, but in truth, his catalog of errors had been mounting for years. For a club that prided itself on a defensive lineage carved by the likes of Rio Ferdinand and Nemanja Vidic, Phil Jones was a surreal departure, a reminder that desire without discipline can undo everything. His legacy remains one of raw effort sinking under the weight of tragicomic execution. Not far from his story lies the tale of Harry Maguire, the world's most expensive defender, forever branded by the inflated price tag that distorted every step he took on the pitch. Signed with the hope of bringing solidity and authority, he instead became the meme of modern football, a man whose aerial duels and misplaced passes drew more ridicule than respect. For a brief window under Ole Gunnar, he seemed steady enough, even showing glimpses of leadership. But the tide soon turned, and the criticisms drowned any lingering faith. Every mistake carried the soundtrack of groans. Every heavy touch became a punchline. Every stumble was magnified. It is cruel, perhaps, for Maguire is not devoid of talent. Yet in Manchester United's dysfunctional system, he became the lightning rod, the scapegoat, the unfortunate emblem of how expensive does not always mean elite. While Phil Jones embodied comedy in defending, Harry Maguire embodied tragedy, a capable defender swallowed by expectation, trapped in a storm that refused to pass. Together, they turned United's defensive fortress into a house of glass. From calamities of the backline, the narrative shifts to the midfield, where one figure seemed to fade into invisibility: Donny van de Beek. When he arrived from Ajax, fans expected a maestro, a player schooled in the fine art of total football, gliding through midfield with grace and vision. Instead, what Old Trafford received was a ghost. He sat on the bench, game after game, season after season, a phantom presence who rarely touched the ball, rarely influenced a match, rarely even appeared to exist in the grand scheme of things. Theories spread like wildfire. Did he offend Ole Gunnar? Had he wronged Erik ten Hag despite their Ajax history? Did he carry some secret curse? The truth was more mundane yet more painful. He simply never fit. The chemistry never sparked. The opportunities never bloomed, and United's midfield carried on as though he were not even there. Sold for a fraction of his original fee, Donny's United chapter was one of silence, not dramatic collapse, not fiery controversy, but the eerie absence of impact. For a club that once boasted maestros like Paul Scholes and Michael Carrick, watching a midfielder vanish into irrelevance was its own quiet humiliation. Yet a Van de Beek's tragedy was invisibility. The attacking line bore the humiliation of overexposure. Jadon Sancho was supposed to be the new crown jewel of English football, a young dribbler who troubled defenders in the Bundesliga, dazzling crowds with flair, pace, and vision. When United secured him after years of pursuit, fans celebrated the arrival of a generational talent. But when he stepped onto the Premier League stage, something inexplicable happened. The magic evaporated. The tricks that once left fullbacks dizzy now ended with misplaced touches. The confidence that made him fearless against German defenses seemed to dissolve under English skies. Supporters waited, patient at first, then frustrated, then betrayed. Time away from the squad was granted to help him reset, but his return brought the same flat performances. And when he accused the club of scapegoating him, the bond between Sancho and the faithful broke beyond repair. In a world where football careers can nosedive in an instant, Sancho's case was particularly painful, for it was not the body that failed him, but the essence of what once made him special. The dribble, the spark, the swagger. He was meant to be United's rising star, but instead he became a fallen one, lost long before his peak. If Sancho's story was about wasted promise, Antony's was about misguided belief. The Brazilian winger carried a hefty price tag and the expectations of Samba-inspired artistry. Yet what he delivered was monotony disguised as flair. Crosses rarely came. His weaker foot may as well have been made of stone, and his infamous spin move, rather than a flourish of skill, became a viral emblem of inefficiency. Each failed attempt at brilliance echoed louder than the last, until patience gave way to mockery. For a club once blessed with the unpredictable genius of Ryan Giggs and Cristiano Ronaldo, watching Antony reduce the R-wing play to repetitive frustration felt like a cruel parody. He was not devoid of effort, nor was he completely without moments of competence. But in the crucible of Manchester United, competence was never enough. He became the embodiment of wasted millions, a player trapped in a cycle of trying and failing, with the whole world watching. Then there was Alexis Sanchez, perhaps the most infamous of all the attacking failures. Once Arsenal's talisman, a forward of relentless energy and ruthless finishing, he arrived at United as the highest-paid player in Premier League history. £500,000 a week, a fortune that symbolized ambition, but soon came to represent folly. After his very first training session, Sanchez reportedly asked if he could go back to Arsenal, a confession that seemed like prophecy. On the pitch, his decline was rapid and brutal. The goals dried up, the spark dimmed, and the player who once trilled defenses became a shadow clinging to memories of former glory. Fans watched in disbelief as the league's best attacker transformed into United's most expensive ghost. Even his own joke about wanting to rip up his contract became a tragic chorus to his downfall. Sanchez's chapter at Old Trafford was not just failure, it was betrayal. A betrayal of expectations, of financial logic, of the very spirit of ambition. For a club chasing its lost supremacy, his signing became a monument to miscalculation. As if defensive chaos, midfield invisibility, and attacking futility were not enough, even the last line of defense collapsed under the weight of disaster. Andre Onana, signed to replace the legendary David De Gea, arrived with the reputation of a modern keeper, comfortable with his feet, bold in distribution, daring in style. But boldness without consistency is a recipe for calamity, and calamity is what United received. He parried the ball into danger, missed routine saves, and carried the composure of a man playing dodgeball rather than football. The Champions League nights that once defined United became nightmares defined by his errors. Supporters watched helplessly as confidence turned to chaos, realizing that in swapping De Gea for Onana, the club had not upgraded but downgraded, trading a Ferrari for a broken bus. And while goalkeepers are often forgiven for teething issues in new leagues, Onana's blunders were too glaring, too costly, too symbolic. He became the final act in United's theater of failure, the man tasked with protecting the net, but instead exposing the club's fragility to the world. Each of these players, from Phil Jones' slapstick defending to Alexis Sanchez's financial catastrophe, from Donny van de Beek's vanishing act to Jadon Sancho's wasted potential, from Antony's repetitive misfires to Andre Onana's goalkeeping disasters, forms part of the mosaic of humiliation that Manchester United has endured. They are not merely bad signings. They are parables of how expectation, money, and pressure can conspire to destroy careers and tarnish legacies. United, the club of legends, has also become the club of tragic mistakes. And in their stories, we see not only the failures of individuals, but the larger collapse of recruitment strategy, the chasm between promise and reality, the eternal reminder that football, for all its glory, is a cruel stage where not every actor remembers their lines. Which of these players do you think deserves the unwanted crown as United's worst ever? Do you believe some of them were victims of the club's chaos rather than their own flaws? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let the debate explode. And if you want more raw football truths and untold stories, make sure you subscribe.